Welcome back, everyone. We're going to be doing LeetCode 1528 called Shuffle String. So we're given a string s and an integer array called indices. They're both of the same length, and we want to shuffle them such that we want to shuffle the string s such that the characters at the ith position move to the indices ith position in the shuffled string. So let's look at our examples. What do we have? C is going to go to the fourth position in our output string. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. That's why we have C right here. Okay, simple enough. So what we could do is we could make an array, and inside of this array we could append a tuple. And what's going to be in this tuple? Well, it's going to be the character in S and the corresponding index. Oh, it could help if I could spell. So that's what we're going to put inside of here. So for example, C and 4, right? So inside this, C will be 4. So how do we do that? Well, we could do a pointer. Let's say we have right equals to the length of our string and -1. Now we could do indices here, but they're both the same length, so it doesn't matter. And let's write a while loop, and we'll say while indices, while we have something, while it's non-zero, the length is non-zero, what are we going to do? We are going to array.append. What are we going to append to our array? Well, we're going to append that character and its corresponding index. So how do we get that? Well, if we're starting at the very end of our string, so T right here, so it's going to be S of right in the first position. And then what else are we going to put inside of this tuple? We also want the indice. Well, if we're starting at the end of our string, we're also going to have to make sure we grab the last index. And we can do that in constant time just by saying indices.pop. Or, if you don't, depending on your interviewer, if you don't want to modify it, you could also just say indices at our right pointer. And that actually might be a little better. Normally, interviewers don't want you to modify your input. But again, that's up to your interviewer, so just ask them. And then what happens after we append that? So we're going to have to decrement our right pointer by 1 just to make sure we keep moving along. So what do we get after this? Well, let's print out our array. We can run it. And what did I do wrong here? String index out of range. Indices right, S of right minus equals 1. Array.append S of right. Oh, okay, I see what I did. Okay, well, we could just say indices.pop then, because we're running this while loop while this is true, while we have something in indices. So if we run this again, yep, we'll get the correct array, right? C is going to be in the fourth position. But again, if you don't want to modify your input array input parameters, then we could say while right is greater than or equal to 0, and then we could say indices of right in this case. So we'll run this, and yep, we get the exact same output, so that's good. Alright, so what now? Well, we have this array with all of the elements and their corresponding positions. How do we build a new a new output string? Well, we could, the easiest way is probably to build a brand new array, and we'll extend it by the length of string. We can do that. And what does this give us? This gives us an array of zeros of length, whatever our string is or our indices, right? They're both the same length. So we can print this out just to show you. Print res. Come down here. This is what we get. So what now? Well, since we have the index and the characters, right, we can just say for element in what? In our array that we just built, what are we going to do? We need to assign res at whatever our element position is, right? So remember, we appended a tuple with the character at position 0 and the index at position 1. So what do we want here? We want to take res's index and set that equal to the character. So that'll be element of 0, and this will be element 1. And then we can return, well, before we return, what is that going to give us? It's just going to give us a new array, right? Our output has to be a string. So let's print out res so you can see what we've built. This is what we've built. So we've built the correct string, right? We took our characters and put them in the correct index in our new array. So what do we have to do now? Well, we have to return a string. How can we do that? We can just do that by simply returning a string join of our resulting array. Get rid of these print statements. Run this, make sure you know it works. And there we go, it works. Okay, so what are the time and space complexities of this problem? So the time complexity is going to be, we're looping through, we'll continue to loop, run this while loop while right is greater than or equal to 0, and we start at the length of s. So we're going to run this O of n times. We're doing the same thing here. We're building a new array containing our tuples, or containing our string. So we're looping through all the elements inside of our array that we just built, so that's going to be O of n as well. And then we are returning a string join. So our time complexity is going to be O of n in this case. And our space complexity. What is our space complexity? Well, we are building a new array of length what? It's going to be equal to the length of whatever the length of string or indices is. So it will be O of, let's say, length of array, we'll call it. Then what? Then we're building another one, so it's again going to be the length of our string, our indice, so we can just copy this. It's going to be the exact same length of, we'll say, res in this case. And then we are also returning a string join. So, and that's going to be what? It's going to be the length of whatever our res is, but it'll, instead of outputting an array, it'll output a string. So our space complexity should be O of whatever the length of our array is, plus our res array, plus our output string. That should be our space complexity. Again, if I'm wrong, anyone can make a comment down below, but that was LeetCode 1528, shuffle string.